Marcus Rivera adjusted his security badge as he walked through the gleaming corridors of Westfield Premium Mall, his slight limp barely noticeable after years of practice. The polished marble floors reflected the designer store lights, creating a world that felt miles away from his small apartment, where 80-year-old Danny waited for him to come home. Each step echoed softly as he passed families laden with shopping bags, their laughter mixing with the gentle hum of expensive conversations and clinking jewelry. He paused near the central fountain, watching a mother push her toddler in a $1,000 stroller while talking animatedly on her phone about stock portfolios. The contrast wasn't lost on him. His Navy uniform, though clean and pressed, marked him as part of the invisible workforce that kept this glittering world safe. Yet Marcus took pride in his work, knowing that his steady paycheck and benefits were giving Danny opportunities he'd never had growing up. The food court buzzed with afternoon energy as teenagers clustered around bubble tea stands and families shared oversized pretzels. Marcus's trained eyes automatically scanned the crowd, a habit from his detective days that never quite left him. That's when he spotted her, a little girl, maybe 7 years old, standing alone near the children's play area. Her designer dress and patent leather shoes suggested she belonged to this world of privilege, but her wide eyes held the unmistakable look of a child who had lost sight of her parent. Before we dive into this story, drop a comment and let us know what state you're watching from. Maybe acts of courage like this happen commonly where you're from. Marcus approached the little girl with the careful, measured steps that had become second nature since the shooting 3 years ago. The bullet that shattered his kneecap had also shattered his career as Detective Rivera, forcing him to trade his badge for a security uniform and his pension for hourly wages. But the instincts remained sharp, and right now they were telling him this child needed help. His limp had cost him everything he'd worked toward for 15 years on the force. The department's medical retirement came with a fraction of his former salary, barely enough to cover rent on their modest 2-bedroom apartment. Danny had never complained about the smaller space or the generic cereal instead of name brands. But Marcus saw the way his son's eyes lingered on classmates' new sneakers and expensive backpacks. The security job at Westfield wasn't glamorous, but it provided health insurance and steady hours that let him pick Danny up from school. His supervisor respected his police background, and the mall managers appreciated having someone with real law enforcement experience watching over their high-end retailers. Still, Marcus couldn't help feeling invisible as he walked past shoppers who barely acknowledged his presence. The little girl shifted nervously, clutching a small stuffed elephant to her chest. Her dark hair was pulled back in an elaborate braid that spoke of morning routines involving nannies or devoted mothers with time to spare. Marcus recognized the signs of privilege, but also the universal fear in a child's eyes when separated from safety. Marcus knelt down to the little girl's eye level, his movements slow and gentle. His years as a detective had taught him that frightened children responded better to calm voices and patient gestures than to authority figures towering over them. "Hello there, sweetheart," he said softly. "I'm Marcus, and I work here at the mall. Are you looking for someone?" The girl hugged her stuffed elephant tighter and nodded, her lower lip trembling slightly. "My mommy is in a big meeting upstairs," she whispered. "She said to wait by the fountain, but there are so many people, and I got scared." Marcus felt his heart clench. Danny had been about this age when Marcus first started working nights, leaving his son with Mrs. Rodriguez next door. He remembered the tears and the clinging hugs, the way Danny would press his face against the window watching for his father's return. "What's your name, honey?" Marcus asked, settling into a comfortable crouch despite the ache in his damaged knee. "Sophia," she replied, her voice gaining a little strength. "Sophia, Chun. My mommy is very important and very busy, but she promised she'd come back soon." Marcus glanced around the bustling food court, noting the security cameras and the flow of foot traffic. His trained eyes automatically cataloged exits and potential hazards, a habit that had never left him. That's when he noticed the man in the dark coat near the electronics store, standing perfectly still while everyone else moved with purpose. Something about the man's posture set off alarm bells in Marcus's mind. Marcus kept his voice light and reassuring as he continued talking to Sophia, but his attention was increasingly drawn to the man in the dark coat. The stranger's behavior triggered every instinct Marcus had developed during his 15 years on the police force. While other shoppers moved with the relaxed rhythm of leisure, this man stood rigid, his eyes scanning the crowd with predatory intensity. "Tell me about your elephant," Marcus said to Sophia, buying time while he observed the suspicious figure. "What's his name?" "Mr. Peanuts," Sophia replied, a small smile breaking through her worried expression. "Mommy got him for me when I had to stay in the hospital last year. He keeps the scary dreams away." The man checked his watch for the third time in 2 minutes, then adjusted something beneath his coat. Marcus's blood pressure spiked as he recognized the telltale signs of concealed carry. But this wasn't the casual positioning of someone with a legal permit. This was someone trying to hide something larger, something dangerous. Marcus reached for his radio with practiced casualness, keeping his movements slow to avoid alarming either Sophia or the potential threat. "Unit 7 to command," he said quietly into his shoulder mic. "Need a status check on the second-floor conference areas. Any scheduled events or meetings?" The response crackled back immediately. "Affirmative, Unit 7. High-profile corporate board meeting in progress, Chin Technologies. Security is tied up there." Marcus's heart raced as he connected the dots. Sophia Chun. Her mother wasn't just at any meeting. The metallic glint beneath the man's coat confirmed Marcus's worst fears. Years of experience had taught him to recognize the distinctive shape of a concealed weapon, and this wasn't a small handgun for personal protection. The bulge suggested something larger, more devastating in a crowded space like this. Marcus's mind raced through tactical assessments. The food court was packed with families, elderly shoppers resting on benches, and teenagers clustered around gaming stations. The nearest exit was 40 feet away through dense crowds. His damaged knee would slow him down, but adrenaline was already numbing the chronic pain that usually plagued his movements. "Sophia, sweetie," Marcus said, forcing his voice to remain calm while his heart hammered against his ribs. "I need you to stay very close to me, okay? We're going to move over here behind this big column where we can see your mommy better when she comes down." The little girl nodded trustingly, clutching Mr. Peanuts as Marcus guided her toward the nearest structural pillar. His radio crackled again, but he couldn't risk alerting the gunman by speaking into it. Instead, he pressed the emergency button 3 times in quick succession, the silent alarm that would bring backup running. The man in the dark coat was moving now, positioning himself with clear sight lines across the central area. His hand disappeared completely inside his jacket, and Marcus saw the moment of decision crystallize in the stranger's posture. Time slowed to a crawl as Marcus realized they were out of options. The gunman's weapon emerged from his coat in one fluid motion, the black metal catching the overhead lights as chaos erupted instantly. Screams pierced the air as shoppers scattered in every direction, overturning chairs and abandoning shopping bags in their desperate flight toward exits. The peaceful afternoon transformed into a nightmare of panic and terror. Marcus pressed Sophia against a marble pillar, his body forming a protective shield between her and the unfolding violence. The little girl buried her face against his chest, her small hands gripping his uniform shirt as the sounds of hysteria surrounded them. "Everyone on the ground now," the gunman shouted, his voice carrying over the screams and stampeding footsteps. "This is about money, not people, but I'll shoot anyone who tries to be a hero." Marcus felt Sophia trembling against him and whispered reassurances he wasn't sure he believed. "It's okay, sweetheart. Help is coming. Just stay right here with me." The gunman's wild eyes swept across the food court, searching for targets or threats. Marcus watched in horror as the man's gaze locked onto their pillar, and he realized with sickening clarity that Sophia's bright red dress had caught the attacker's attention. The gunman began moving toward them, weapon raised, his intentions unmistakable. In that split second, Marcus made the only choice his conscience would allow. Without hesitation, he stepped out from behind the pillar, placing himself directly in the line of fire. The gunshot cracked through the air like thunder, and Marcus felt the bullet tear through his left shoulder with searing intensity. White-hot pain exploded through his body, but his mind remained crystal clear with singular purpose. Sophia was safe behind him, and that was all that mattered. Despite the burning agony radiating down his arm, Marcus's police training kicked in with muscle memory that transcended conscious thought. He launched himself forward, using his momentum and the gunman's momentary surprise to close the distance between them. His damaged knee screamed in protest, but adrenaline overrode everything except the need to neutralize the threat. The tackle sent both men crashing into a nearby table, Marcus's good arm wrapping around the gunman's wrist to control the weapon. Blood from his shoulder wound splattered across the white tile floor as they struggled, but Marcus held on with desperate determination. He could hear Sophia crying behind the pillar, and the sound fueled his resolve. Years of arrest procedures and defensive tactics flooded back as Marcus used his weight and leverage to pin the gunman's arm against the table edge. The weapon clattered to the floor, sliding across the polished marble beyond either man's reach. Marcus maintained his grip even as his vision began to blur from blood loss, knowing that every second he held on was another second of safety for everyone in the mall. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder as backup finally arrived. Paramedics flooded the scene as mall security and police officers secured the subdued gunman. Marcus lay on his side, his uniform shirt dark with blood, but his eyes remained fixed on the pillar where Sophia huddled with her stuffed elephant. The little girl was physically unharmed, and that knowledge made every spike of pain worth enduring. Officer Rivera, a young EMT, said, recognizing him from his police days, "We need to get you to the hospital immediately. You're losing a lot of blood." Marcus tried to wave him off with his good arm. "Check on the little girl first. Make sure she's okay. Her name is Sophia Chun, and her mother is upstairs in a board meeting. Sir, you took a bullet to the shoulder. You need immediate medical attention," the paramedic insisted, already cutting away Marcus's bloody shirt to assess the wound. As they worked to stabilize him, Marcus heard commotion near the escalators. A woman's voice cut through the lingering chaos, high-pitched with terror and desperation. "Sophia, where's my daughter?" Someone said there was a shooting. A figure in an expensive charcoal business suit came running through the crowd of first responders, her perfectly styled hair disheveled and her designer heels clicking frantically across the blood-stained marble. Victoria Chen's composed corporate facade had completely crumbled, replaced by the raw panic of a mother who might have lost everything that mattered. Marcus watched through increasingly blurry vision as Sophia broke free from a police officer's gentle hold and ran toward her mother. Victoria Chun dropped to her knees as Sophia ran into her arms, tears streaming down her face as she held her daughter tight. The boardroom and quarterly projections that had consumed her afternoon suddenly seemed meaningless compared to the precious weight of her child against her chest. "Mommy, I was so scared," Sophia sobbed. "But the nice security man protected me. He got hurt because of me." Victoria's eyes moved from her daughter to the wounded man being loaded onto a stretcher. Blood soaked through multiple layers of gauze on his shoulder, and his face was pale from shock and blood loss. A police officer approached her with gentle urgency. "Ma'am, I'm Sergeant Williams. Your daughter is safe because of this man's actions." Officer Marcus Rivera put himself directly in the line of fire to protect her. The gunman was targeting civilians, and your daughter would have been hit if not for his intervention. Victoria felt her knees go weak as the full magnitude of what had happened sank in. This stranger, this security guard she had probably walked past dozens of times without acknowledgement, had taken a bullet meant for Sophia. He had risked everything for a child he didn't even know. "Where are they taking him?" Victoria asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Memorial Hospital. He's lost significant blood, but the paramedics think he'll make it," the sergeant replied. Victoria stood slowly, still holding Sophia, her mind racing with emotions she couldn't quite process. At Memorial Hospital, Victoria sat in the sterile waiting room while Sophia slept curled against her side. The doctors had assured them that Marcus would recover, but the surgery to remove bullet fragments and repair damaged tissue would take several hours. Victoria used the time to learn everything she could about the man who had saved her daughter's life. The hospital social worker provided basic information from his emergency contact forms. Marcus Rivera, 38 years old, former police detective, currently employed as mall security. Single father to 80-year-old Danny Rivera. No other family listed. When a young boy with Marcus's dark eyes and serious expression arrived with an elderly Hispanic woman, Victoria's heart clenched. Danny Rivera looked exactly like his father, but with the wide-eyed confusion of a child trying to understand why his daddy was hurt. Mrs. Rodriguez whispered to Victoria that she was the neighbor who watched Danny after school. The boy had been doing homework when a call came, and she'd driven him to the hospital immediately. Victoria watched Danny approach Sophia with shy curiosity. "Is your daddy the one who got hurt helping my daddy?" Sophia asked softly. Danny nodded solemnly. "My dad is really brave. He used to catch bad guys before he got hurt the first time." Victoria felt tears prick her eyes as she realized the full scope of Marcus's sacrifice. This wasn't just a security guard doing his job. This was a father, a protector, someone who had already given so much in service to others. When Marcus finally woke up 12 hours later, his shoulder immobilized in a complex sling, he found Victoria Chun sitting beside his hospital bed. She looked different somehow, her corporate armor replaced by simple jeans and a sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail that made her seem younger and more vulnerable. "How's Sophia?" were his first words, his voice rough from anesthesia. "She's perfect, thanks to you," Victoria replied, her voice thick with emotion. "Mr. Rivera, I need you to understand something. What you did yesterday wasn't just heroic. It was everything. Sophia is my entire world, and you gave her back to me." Marcus shifted uncomfortably, wincing as pain shot through his shoulder. Anyone would have done the same thing. "She's just a little girl." Victoria shook her head firmly. "No, not anyone would have taken a bullet for a stranger's child. The doctors told me about your previous injury, about how you left the police force. You've already sacrificed so much, and yet you didn't hesitate to sacrifice again." She leaned forward, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "I've spent the last 12 hours thinking about how to properly thank you, and I've realized that words aren't enough. I want to offer you something, Mr. Rivera. A position as head of corporate security for Chin Technologies. Full benefits, college fund for Danny, and the respect and recognition you deserve." Marcus stared at her, certain the pain medication was making him hallucinate. 6 months later, Marcus stood in the gleaming lobby of Chin Technologies, his new security badge reflecting the morning sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. His shoulder had healed completely, leaving only a small scar that served as a reminder of the day his life changed forever. The limp from his old injury seemed less noticeable now that he walked with renewed purpose and confidence. Danny bounded through the lobby doors, his backpack bouncing as he ran toward his father. The after-school program at Chin Technologies had become his favorite place, especially since Sophia attended the same program. The two children had formed an unbreakable bond, their friendship built on the foundation of their father's courage and their mother's gratitude. "Dad, Sophia, and I finished our science project," Danny announced proudly. "We're presenting it tomorrow, and Mrs. Chun said she might come watch." Marcus smiled as Victoria emerged from the elevator, her professional demeanor softening the moment she spotted the children. The transformation in their lives had been remarkable. But perhaps the most surprising change was the genuine friendship that had developed between two single parents who understood the weight of protecting what mattered most. As Marcus watched Danny and Sophia excitedly discuss their project, he reflected on how one moment of courage had not only saved a life, but had restored his faith in second chances. Sometimes the greatest acts of heroism were simply about being willing to step forward when others stepped back. If this story touched your heart, please drop a comment and let us know your favorite part, or if you've ever witnessed someone show this kind of courage for a stranger.